Before we start,
Okay.
well, hello everyone. Welcome to another edition of One Plus One, your place for inconvenient truth telling and myth busting. And on our All Things Romania edition, All Things Eastern European edition, on this special sort of breaking news edition of One Plus One, we're going to be talking about recent Romanian elections. Who better to have that than Maria Cernat, who is an academic who teaches media studies, media criticism, and media ethics at Tito Maioesc in Romania,
Well,
correct?
let's
And I'm
see.
butchering the name, and I know I'm butchering the name completely.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Yuri. Thanks for having me. This is a special edition. We are also recording this for the Peace Barricade. And Yuri had the wonderful idea of recording an episode about what happened recently with the presidential elections in Romania.
Yes, and I'm really looking forward to it, and also have to remind our audience, Maria, no longer a part of the barricade, but she is part of Maria introduced a new media outlet that you're part of, and you're also part of World Beyond War's Romania chapter.
Yes, I am part of World Beyond the World. I am head of the Peace Barricade, the Romanian chapter. I started this with the hope that more and more Romanians would join in an effort that is also anti-Putin, but also pro-peace. And we are from that minority that is often ignored, but I think it's getting larger and larger, and no longer a minority of people that don't want to be subservient to external powers, but still want negotiations, collaborations, and as much as possible, we want to advance a peaceful solution and not accept this false dilemma, as we call it in critical thinking, where you have to choose between just two options, being pro-Putin or pro-NATO. We have to find spaces to advance our interests in between and to find ways to promote our interests in a way that does not put us in conflict with Russia. I think that's very important and doesn't put us in conflict with other countries in general.
In
And for that, I started the Peace Barricade, which I think is more devoted to peace. I was a little bit annoyed by the fact that unfortunately, even our media and the project I created was started to shift a little bit towards Russia, despite my best efforts to keep a neutral stance, because I don't think it's the job of journalists to tell people what to think. We have to present both sides of the story if we are truly honest. And promoting people that are so pro-war, violently pro-war, and very aggressive in their idea that war is the only solution, and just switch inside. You have those who promote the United States interests and NATO, and the other ones that promote, it's going to solve nothing. We were, or I was, for nuanced debate. And this is what I'm trying to do at the Peace Barricade. And I'm happy to rejoin you again. I saw that your channel grew, and I invite everybody to watch your episodes because you have a taste for very interesting people that are usually ignored.
Oh, you're being far too kind, and you're lucky I'm a black man, so you can't see me blush. Although black skins, but
Yeah.
actually, before we get into Romania, now we're not going to talk too much about Ukraine, but I do want to say there is I we'll probably record like a whole separate segment for it because there's a lot of very interesting things that you just mentioned about pro Putin. Yeah, if you want to call it pro Putin camp, but there is I find a bit of a problem with the left in terms of anyways, I definitely want to have a conversation about the state of Ukraine and the state of the peace movement because I myself, am a little bit, dismayed by some of the historical positions of some who want peace in Ukraine, and also, I also find, that we should be advocating for peaceful solutions and not just endless militarism where people feel that they have to join a side, and so so hopefully we'll get the chance to talk to that. But let's talk about why the first reason why we're here, which was breaking news. Romania special elections and a special person got elected.
Oh,
So why
yeah,
don't you? So yeah. So tell us what recently happened in Romania. What kind of an election was it? And then from there, explain to us this incoming leader of your country. That's yeah.
is not yet a leader, is Mr. Călin Georgescu. Now, something extraordinary happened. I don't know, I'm not a political scientist, but I read a lot of political science books. I read about electoral debates, and I think this is quite unique. It is the first time, at least in the history of our country, and in the history of known democracies, so to speak, or at least if the viewers have a similar example, I'm very curious to find out about it. But it's the first time in history, Yuri, when we had a candidate that nobody knew anything about. Nobody credited this individual, independent candidate with voting intentions. Secondly, he was not invited to the mainstream media presidential debates. And also, and most importantly, you well know, and our viewers, I think they know that whenever there is an electoral race, you have what we call exit polls. We had 4 independent companies, research companies, that were agreed by the Romanian authority called the Central Electoral Bureau, and 4 companies were supposed to offer Romanians the exit polls. And all these companies and all the 4 surveys indicated Mr. Ciolacu, the Social Democrat leader, the leader of the Social Democratic Party, as being the first with at least 30% of the voting intention. And then you had Mrs. Lasconi
And,
from
he,
Union
and,
State.
he's the current president.
Yeah, he is currently the prime minister because the
Oh,
current president is from the National Liberals, Mr. Klaus Johannes. He
okay.
is, again, the first time in the history of our democracy. We had an ethnic German that was elected president, and for 10 years we had a German as the president of Romania. He lives in the western part of the country, and he comes from the German ethnic minority. Now, Mr. Ciolacu was the head of the Social Democrats, and he was credited by all the companies that were vetoed and were accredited to create these exit polls and to conduct sociological research as the first in terms of the voting intention. And out of the blue, with nobody even mentioning this independent candidate, we ended up with a very bizarre situation where almost 23% of the voting intention and of the votes, 9.4 million people voted, and 23% of this voted with Călin Georgescu. And Romania was set on fire, as you can imagine. Nobody knew anything about this guy. Where did he advertise himself? Where did he promoted his ideas?
And
What
got also
media did he
like
use? I mean,
it also got like no attention from
no attention at all.
the
And the
Romanian
second one,
newspapers and the magazines. Just nobody covered this guy.
no. And with just a few exceptions, some minor publications, they wrote something about him, but nobody attributed such importance to this candidate. And nobody said that he would be the first, because he ended up being the first among all the candidates in the presidential race. And The second one is Elena Lasconi. He's a fanatic pro-West, pro-NATO. She published in Kiev Post saying that Romania should support the war effort in Ukraine. So she's a copy of Kaja Kallas, if you like, of a very pro-Western, hell-bent to engage Romania in all the war efforts, supporting Ukraine with all there is necessary and all the rest. And she comes from the right-wing party Union Save Romania, which is dominated by libertarians. I call them the Union Privatized Romania, and they even say that they want to make Romania look like a corporation, and they think if the corporations work fine, and they say it like this, I mean, they are very serene in their expose, and they say that if corporations are so efficient, why can't we run Romania like it's a corporation? And we should imitate in our political life and public institutions what happens in the corporation. And first and foremost, we should privatize everything. So this is the candidate that came second. Now, the big surprise, Mr. Călin Georgescu. Where did he came from? Now, a lot of Romanian intellectuals, as I told you, are right-wingers and are big fans of NATO, big fans of the EU, big fans of the pro-Western Euro-Atlanticist destiny, as they call it, or
Exactly.
and they say that the Euro-Atlanticist trajectory, this is what they call it, and they are very fond of this direction. They don't question anything. And if you dare questions the military equipment acquisition and all the money spent on the, planes, weapons, and all sorts of things that Romania is buying, and they should arrive like years after we pay for them. We pay in advance, and we pay with borrowed money and all the rest. And that if you dare say something, of course you are a
Putin puppet.
Putinist, a Putin puppet, and all the rest. Okay. And here comes Mr. Georgescu. I want to play a clip because Mr. Georgescu, let me tell you that he's something else. So, okay, so let me give you the official, so to speak, some data about him in general. Who is he? Călin Georgescu, born March 26, 1962, Romanian engineer, doctor in pedology. This is in agricultural science. Expert in sustainable development, graduate of a postgraduate program at the National Defense College. This is the college where most of the people that works for the secret services go. The National Defense College is like, symbol of the people that have connections with the secret services. This is the informal, connection. Of course, there isn't, like a clear-cut connection, but usually the people that follow this and enroll in this type of programs are connected to the secret services, or this is the common mentality. In Romania, he's an independent candidate in the 2024 Romanian presidential elections. He worked within the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in several governments during the 90s, and he's been proposed multiple times for the position of Prime Minister of Romania before entering the race for the presidency of Romania. His professional career is marked by international activity from 2010 to 2012, Călin Georgescu served as Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and Hazardous Waste of the UN Office for High Commissioner on Human Rights. Later, he was President of the European Support Center Wittenberg, Switzerland, and the Club of Rome, and Executive Director of United Nations Global Sustainable Index Institute in Geneva from 2015 till 2016. But in addition to his career, he's been known for his pro-legionary statements, pro-Russian views, downplaying the coronavirus, the anti-establishment rhetoric, and in 2022, he was charged with promoting the cult of individuals responsible for genocide. He is supporting Ion Antonescu, who was the right-wing extremist legionnaire prime minister of Romania, right-wing extremist. He is also responsible, and he was condemned by a court as a war criminal. I mean, he was condemned because he was responsible for the murdering of Jews, persecution of Jews and Roma people during Second World War. And Mr. Georgescu said that this is a national hero. Because in Romania, you know, it's unbelievable how the authorities and how people were so reluctant in combating this type of rhetoric. It's unbelievable how people got away with supporting, and it's still like a debate. I mean, what is there to debate? Ion Antonescu was charged and was condemned as a war criminal by a Romanian court of justice, and now these neo-legionnaires are claiming that that court was communist and was biased, and somehow he did bad things, but not so bad. Even though, you know, the Romanian army went to Odessa and killed like thousands of Jews, even though Roma population, Jewish population was deported and hundreds of thousands died, not hundreds, but thousands of people, tens of thousands died.
And this guy was prime minister of Romania during the coronavirus crisis?
No. He was in all these positions, and he downplayed the coronavirus crisis. And Mr. Georgescu is praising this individual that was responsible for the murdering of Roma and the persecution of Roma and Jewish population during World War II. And he was charged by a Romanian court because still, even though Romania is very tolerant to extremist discourses, even for Romania, it was too much. And Mr. Georgescu, is, a basket of the wildest conspiracy theories and ideas. I don't know where to start. I mean, let me give you a couple of examples. There is a clip circulating online where he claims to have met with extraterrestrial forms of life. And these extraterrestrial forms of life that are definitely not human, he doesn't call them extraterrestrial, but he calls them non-human, are exemplified by Klaus Schwab, the organizer of the Davos conference.
Yeah, the World Economic Forum. A lot of our
yes,
minimalist and nihilist friends like to paint him as like the Satan incarnate who
controls. He is a neo-Marxist Satanist, but his nature is not quite human as Mr. Georgescu, because I listened to it this morning and I said to myself, oh boy, I mean, this is wild. And apparently, Mr. Klaus Schwab is of a non-human nature, okay? He is, as I told you, a neo-Marxist Satanist, and he's not the creation of God, because God created us out of love. And this is the first one. Now I want to play a clip. I have here a clip.
Okay.
Fantastic. I mean, let me play this clip. I have the link and I will now put it online. Let me see, because I have it opened. Okay. Okay, and now I will go to YouTube and play the clip. It is with Mr. Georgescu. He claims he claims that he is able to take a bath in cold water, and he claims his immune system is so strong that he will not be affected by the cold. I mean, I haven't seen something so
By
crazy.
the cold. So
Let me show you. So
okay.
you have to see this. It's unbelievable. So you see it here, it's called The Way to Your Universe, and it starts with the mountains, and then he says how his immune system is fantastic, how water is information, and now we see him, okay?
Yeah.
And this is uploaded on National Land Unofficial. This is a channel. And now we see him. Now, look.
Nu mi-este frică. Nu
He's
mi-este
not
frică.
afraid. He's not cold.
Pentru că tot ceea ce fac, fac prin Dumnezeu.
Because
Voi
everything he
comunica
does through God.
inima mea. Nu am nevoie de
And he
Facebook. Nu
communicates
am
with
nevoie de
God.
internet. Nu am
He
nevoie de
doesn't need the
am
phone.
nevoie doar de inima mea.
He needs
ca să
his
aflu
heart
înțelepciunea lui.
to find out what the wise thinking of God is. And now he takes a bath in the cold water.
Am încredere în sistemul meu imunitar.
And he says, you know, trembling, I trust my immune system.
Pentru că am încredere și credință de plină în Creatorul.
Because I have full belief in God. I have full trust in God.
Ține de suveranitatea ființei mele.
My humanity is connected to my human sovereignty.
Imunitatea.
My immune system
Și se antrenează doar în natură.
is trained in the nature.
Aici este realitatea.
This is the reality. This is where reality is, and this is where the information is, not in the laboratory. This is why I'm not cold. I don't feel the cold. I feel the power.
Sunt liber.
I'm free. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing at the fact that he was trembling. Oh, I trust my immune system.
Well, I have to ask this then. Okay, because he got no coverage from the Romanian corporate state press, no coverage in the Romanian radio press, no coverage within Romania's newspapers, magazines, whatever little press covers, whatever little international press covers Romania, certainly did not cover this guy. So the big $1 million question is, how did the Romania electorate vote for this guy? And
TikTok. He had a wonderful campaign on TikTok first, and second of all, because he has all this mumbo jumbo's idea about defending yourself and training your immune system, not in the laboratory, but going and taking bath in the cold lakes during, you know.
Attention span is like 3 to 5 seconds, or
and that, I mean, you saw the Seinfeld episode with the shrinkage factor. I mean, a whole array of memes was done after this. I mean, what is interesting is that also his wife that worked for years in a bank, then worked as the personal trainer, promoter of natural products, promoter of natural ways, so-called natural ways of healing yourself. And she is one of the persons involved in a shop called Naturalia that sells, you know, chia, quinoa, all sorts of seeds, all sorts of natural ways to heal yourself, because they have this idea that through water, through natural plants, you're going to heal every disease, because, you know, all the new age pro nature BS that that you just put some cinema on your whatever and then you're going to be cured of every disease you can imagine. And she's very, very popular. She's very popular because unfortunately in Romania, the paranormal is also very popular. After the communist times, when capitalism hit Romania and deregulations and mass unemployment and the closing down of major factors, I mean, it sent Romanian society into a shock, a powerful shock that resulted in a terrible decay of institutions, education, everything was, everything exploded. People could no longer found themselves. I mean, their job security was gone. The hospitals were in ruin. The schools were a disaster. Everything that they rely on was crumbling before their eyes. And first and foremost, the industry and their jobs were, gone. And this is when this movement with the paranormal became very popular in Romania, unfortunately. And now you see the results because also his wife and him and they are collaborating and they are sending messages through WhatsApp groups, through magazines promoting natural healing methods for diseases. All this, what do you call it? Irrational part of life. And now let me show you, because unfortunately, as I told you, paranormal and believe in supernatural, wild explanations, unfortunately, is not specific to Mr. Georgescu. The other candidate, because I want to show you something, was also claiming this. I mean, we could call this the Romania in the grips of irrational beliefs.
Yeah.
You have here on the right, Călin Georgescu, how he met a species that was in any case not human, and what he believes about the pyramids and the first step on the moon. He doesn't believe that people went on the moon, of course. It's just a lie. And this is the other candidate. This nice lady over here, Elena Lasconi, is the other candidate.
Right.
And she says, because she was a long time TV anchor in the news media Pro TV, and she says, a news anchor from Pro TV believes she has paranormal powers. I feel that Mamisa, that is her dead host, she rented the place and the host, and she stayed with her for a couple of years, and then this person died, and she says, I feel Mamisa is watching me. And she says, Elena Lasconi believes in paranormals and even confesses that she might have such powers. I kid you not. I kid you not. I mean, the producer of the TV show Beyond Stories from Acasă TV, this is another TV station, claims that through a greater or smaller coincidence, she was able to narrate the death of a lady that was her host.
She was able to narrate
the death of
somebody who's dead.
Of somebody who died, yes, and that person was her host.
So like that spirit of that dead lady went to her body and she could speak for that lady because she was like possessed or something.
Or she can just feels her presence and she can talk to the dead people.
Well, my follow-up question would be, what is it? Okay, what has happened within the last several years of Romania? So the time you were part of the barricade through the horrific coronavirus crisis and this ridiculous war, still ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. So what happened throughout that entire period that made the electorates kindly tell the incumbent folks that were in power to kindly F off, we're going to go for these people, and we're not even going to tell you guys about it. We're just going to surprise you when we cast our votes. So,
there is this theory.
So what legacy did I have this name right here. So what legacy did geez. So what legacy did Klaus Johann leave that made people basically say we no longer trust you guys to run capitalism. We're going to go with these idlibs, idiot libertarians, idiot liberals.
So what happened was that, unfortunately, the last time, the first time in 2014, and then the second one, 2020, when we voted for this president, or it was 2019, where we voted for Klaus Johannes, what happened was that, unfortunately, he became somebody very arrogant, very silent. He hasn't given an interview throughout his presidency. He doesn't talk to the press. In the second term, when he was supposed to debate, he refused the debate and he arranged a discussion with friendly press. And apparently the intellectuals in Romania were so disgusted with the Social Democrats and with the idea of socialism that were promoting this individual to become the next president of Romania. And they did it twice. And now a very famous, elitist publication called Recorder published finally a criticism of this individual that was a disaster. And this speaks tons on their journalistic ethics and their lack of courage, because instead of doing that while he was still in power, they are doing that when he's about to leave. And now we are presented with Elena Lasponi, this person that some years ago claimed to have been able to speak to her dead host, to her dead owner of the apartment that she rented, okay? And now they're doing it again, because they say we should choose the lady that claimed a few years back to speak, being able to speak with dead people, to save democracy from Mr. Georgescu, who claims he met another species. Okay, this is so incredibly crazy. Now listen. Romanian people felt so abandoned and so ignored by the elites. And I told you, Yuri, that Romania you had the impression of walking through a museum. You know that Sleeping Beauty scene, when the prince entered the castle and everybody is asleep. This is the sentiment you get when you were watching the Romanian political debates, the Romanian television. Everything was frozen because everything was controlled. And you were not able to discuss the fact that we have no industry. You're not able to discuss the fact that the little owners in Romania have no way of surviving very powerful agricultural corporations. You have no debates around the war in Ukraine. We knew that we had to defend Ukraine. We knew that we had to buy a lot of weapons and military equipment. End of discussion, because we defend democracy. We knew that we had to support NATO no matter what. We knew that we had to support the EU no matter what. And I don't say these are not legitimate political ideas. Okay, I'm not that, fanatic, me. I'm not that fanatic. Oh, we should wait for the EU to go and for NATO to go, because I don't believe in magical solutions, okay? I'm not that kind. I don't believe that they will go and will we be happily ever after. I mean, you have to be 5 to believe something like that, okay? Because political reality and economic life and sociological life is a little bit more complicated than that. Let's get rid of NATO and we will be happy. Let's get rid of the bad, boogeyman and we will be happy. It doesn't work like that.
Would be a good start.
And, okay, I mean, it might be a condition, but it's far from being enough. Far from being enough. And,
because you need a powerful left for that, yeah.
And, I have nothing against the people that support this. Okay, is their right? But everything was controlled, and everything was, presented as something unquestionable. And if you dared raise your voice, even with rational debates, you would be initially, silenced, censored, crushed, and the population, exactly like in Noels Neumann, the famous media theoretician that published The Spiral of Silence, withdrew. They went to TikTok and they listened to this guy who is, combining these extremely insane ideas like, if you drink water from a plastic bottle of a plastic cup, this is not good, because apparently the water has a connection to the divine, and if you put it in a plastic recipient, then that connection is severed. Okay, and he combines these ideas, which are, something to laugh for decades. But he combines this with very powerful messages. And he says things that are very important, apparently, for Romanians, that we have no industry, that we are not able to produce even floss. We are not able to produce the tiniest things, from the most mundane, like floss, to more complex things like clothing. We are not able to provide Romanians with decent jobs, because since we don't produce anything, where are you going to get a decent job as a worker, if not abroad? Then we have to send people abroad to get jobs that are better paid, but they lack the respect, and they are precarious, they're away from their families and all the rest. The little landowner in Romania has a very difficult time confronting the very powerful agricultural companies that own big chunks, if the vast majorities of Romanian land. And this is also, a national theme, since you say and you claim to be independent, but you have agricultural businesses that own most of the land in your country. How is this, how is this defining independence? Then he says that, what other thing? That Romanians are poor, that we have to make sure that we address the question of poverty and not engage ourselves in debates about weaponry and the conflict in Ukraine, because we have nothing to do with either with Putin or with Ukraine. We have to stay focused on our national interests, because at least 10% of the children are using drugs, and we have to confront this reality. And people are listening. People are listening, okay? Because the themes he puts forward, the idea that we have to advocate for peace, the idea that we should keep Romania neutral, and we should distance ourselves as much as we can from this conflict that is not our business, that we should focus on our national problems and all the rest, and people are listening. He combines themes that you would expect to be on the left, but the left is not discussing those, with themes that are conservative, the idea that if you give birth through a C-section is a tragedy, because again, there's a connection between fetus and God. And if you give birth through a C-section, that connection again is severed. He has this myth of connections, connectivity, God, and all the rest. So he combines this irrational mysticism with very specific and with themes that for Romanians resonate, with which the Romanian people resonate a lot. I listened to him, and I think that this is the key to his success. Romanians were also very much disappointed about the way the pandemic was managed in Romania, because apparently the profits of the vaccine corporations went before the interests of the people. There were lockdowns, but no support was given on the people who lost their jobs. And of course, they are willing
the
to...
biggest mistake of the pandemic was doing that, was letting people...
Yes, yes. I'm going to pause a little bit and open the... turn on the light.
Shall we?
And this combination between all these themes, these ideas that you can heal yourself, that you can rely on yourself, you know, they're very individualistic in a sense. And people who were trained to think only about themselves and their families resonate also with that. And themes, as I told you, that are very, very important for a very precarious part of the Romanian people. And as you can imagine, a lot of people, and he also is a very good public speaker. He's very calm, he's very articulate, and you know what he speaks of more, and I think it resonates more than anything else? Love. He says that God created us out of love, that we should love each other, that he's there to serve us because he loves the people, the Romanian people. And we should base our actions, and you know, this whole presidency is the work of God and of love and understanding, you know? And I think this also resonates with a lot of people who feel betrayed, who feel very bad in these very precarious economic conditions and need this type of authoritarian, very wise father figure to comfort them. Listening to him for a lot of Romanians, I think, is very comforting, because while the other accuse each other, shout at each other, and are very vicious in their attacks, he aims to be very calm, very nice. And the message he sent to Elena Lasconi was very well thought through, because he said, you shouldn't be happy because Romanians are sad. And I am not happy for myself as you are in your selfish attitude, because I'm doing the work of God and I'm here to serve Romanians, whereas you are here for yourself and your selfish interests. Now, how clever is that? You know, I mean, the guy, I think, is very, you know, is very interesting, because he brings new blood, if you like, to this Romanian political corpse. Everything was dying and dead. The ideas that were discussed were the same for the past 30 years, and Romanians were bored to death by politics. And it is the first time in a very long, very long time, in decades, I think, that Romanians are interested again in politics, because this guy came out of nowhere and injected these crazy ideas into the public, but knew it is alive, you know, even though it is crazy, it's alive. And it's interesting.
Well, it's interesting, you know, responding to, geez, all the things of, of the, of, what's his name again? This leader.
Călin Georgescu.
I think what's interesting about Georgescu is the following. If one can compare him to other far right or neo far right leaders, I find it I find it's quite interesting. My father is from the Netherlands, and if you look at the current far right coalition that's in the Netherlands. Now, for folks, internationally, they all think that that the Dutch vote for Hertz Wilders and other parties like that because they're all Islamophobic. Now, there is no doubt that a lot of people did vote for him, the kind of Dutch nationalism and so forth. But my father did an interesting test of me because I wanted to vote in the last general election. Once again, I missed the chance. But the Dutch government does the following to people who are undecided and people who want to make informed decisions about who they vote for. So they send you this letter. You answer this questionnaire. Do you believe that the government should support single parents who have needy children? Do you believe that the government should bail out people who are chronically unemployed and stuff like that? And if you answer yes, yes, and yes, and so forth, you'll find that it's not only the PVDA, the Labour Party, or the Green Left Party that advocates that, but that Hertz Wilders' own party, the Party for Freedom something, also advocates a lot of that. And if you listen to Marine Le Pen and you try and you push aside, the xenophobia and stuff like that, she talks a lot about the working class, how people should be in love with the work they do because work is beautiful and stuff like that. And a lot of times she talks like she is a left winger and so forth. So that explains why mass amount of working class people do support her. And then I think you can also find the same thing with this current guy who just got elected, and that yes, the crazy eccentric views are very problematic, but the fact that he actually is talking about poverty is saying, look, Romania is a dump right now. People are depressed. People can't find jobs. We should not be happy that people are going overseas into other European Union countries in order to support themselves and their family and so forth like that. And absence of a left that can articulate people's anger and actually has an entire program that isn't just believe in the holy divine in the holy trinity that is the European Union, us, and NATO. Folks are going to the folks. You may not like their idea of a protest vote, but if your choices are several libertarian parties, but this one is promising something for the workers, and this one is actually speaking to people who, like it or not, are on TikTok and do believe in spiritual medicines, the kind of stuff Alex Jones is selling you on InfoWars. Can you
Yes,
really
yes,
like the electorate?
you're perfectly right. You're perfectly right. It is also the demise of the left and the decaying, state of the left, and the fact that it is oriented so much on the young and on cultural things and on urban areas, as I told you, because the left in Romania, as feminism, as pro-LGBT movement, is concentrated in a few privileged urban areas in Romania. If you go, in the countryside, or no, these things are completely irrelevant. And now they became even, hated by the vast majority, unfortunately, due to these guys who are also very anti, minorities, and very misogynistic and very conservative in their views. And we will see. The election is like a Muppet show, because you have to choose basically between a person that believes Klaus Schwab is from another species and a person that a few years back claimed that she has paranormal powers. But the one is advocating for peace and advocating for solving the poverty problem, and the other one is hell-bent on involving Romania in the Ukraine war effort and supporting Ukraine with everything it needs to win this war. And I think a lot of people would vote for him because also Romania is a patriarchal and very misogynistic culture, first and foremost. Second of all, the peace is very important for Romanians. And unfortunately, the mainstream political parties, the mainstream intellectuals, the mainstream media ignored completely this theme and presented the public the only option of supporting Ukraine because we have to support the democratic values of the EU and we have to support NATO because we are partners in this military alliance. And that was it. End of discussion. And due to these things, I think he will be successful. I would definitely like to have a second round of discussions after the next the second round, because we had the first round, and now in the second round, the first two that qualified, Mrs. Lasconi and Mr. Georgescu, are going to run again, and then the winner will be the one that takes the most votes, and we'll see what happens. Because you know what scares me the most, and this will be my final observation for this discussion, is not entirely Mr. Georgescu, because as crazy as he seems, I mean, you know at least what to expect. You know, he's kind of predictable, but when you go in, and the Romanian intellectuals that finally see that their whole construction, you know, their whole worldview, if you like, is crumbling before their eyes, and they ended up with this individual that basically, you know, solidifies and basically concentrates everything they hate, that brings up the worst in them. They are calling for the secret services to arrest the guy, to stop the guy, to investigate the guy. They are calling for Romanians to save democracy. And again, we have to save democracy. You know, we had to save democracy when we voted for Mr. Băsescu. We had the other president. We had to save democracy when we voted for the incumbent president, Mr. Iohannis, and you know, this messianic voting power of Romanians is brought up time and again to legitimize political leaders that otherwise are extremely incompetent, because there is also the question of competence. Now, Mrs. Lasconi was a TV anchor, as in you can imagine she speaks okay in public, but at the same time, she's incredibly incompetent, and it was proven time and again by journalists asking like simple questions. For instance, to give you one example, she was asked what would she do to better apply the idea of the civil control on secret services. Now, as you well know, there is a special commission in the Romanian parliament that is controlling and is supposed to control the secret services. And she answered something like, oh, but this is very easy. I will just name as the manager of the secret services a civilian. I mean, the horror. I mean, oh my gosh, she didn't even know.
What I find the most depressing, and this is probably going to have to be saved. This is probably going to be another conversation another day. But I do want to talk about this before we conclude. Is where is the mighty left, which should be addressing all of these issues, having a very good concrete plan about how to address these issues? I mean, the last European, the last European Union elections in which the far right just won mightily. The left, from social democrats to the green left to the establishment left, which has completely, like, it's not even left anymore, it's just another right wing party, have all been very much wiped out and discredited. And I find that just very, very troubling. And I mean, is the left so devoid of, is so unable to speak to people, to speak to people's pain, and have a very good concrete even
No, the left is non-existent. Let me explain. So, Yuri, there was a problem, because in a country, in a very big country, kind of wealthy country like the United States, if you have a left that is mainly focused on identity politics, it still works. The duck still flies, But in Romania, that doesn't fly, man, because we are extremely, extremely poor, okay? Like 20% to 30% of our people, and this is huge. This is huge, okay? Almost 1/3 of our country is extremely poor. And poor like in the global south, because we were reduced to a country in the global south. I mean, the decay of industry, school, everything, infrastructure was incredible, okay? And if you come with themes like feminism, no one cares, man. No one cares. And even worse, if you attach that to a pro-war agenda, people are going to spit in your face. Okay? You can't do that in Romania. You can't. I told you. If I go on the street and ask basic questions that, for instance, in the United States, they debated since they have the sexual revolutions and they debated and they know like sex, gender, and all the rest. And I go here in my village, people don't even know. They don't care. They don't care. And this is why when the left focused exclusively almost on these issues and allowed itself to be concentrated in big urban areas, that was fine, where Romania was fine, okay? But once the economic hardship hit, we see now people that were forming leftist parties like the Demos party, aligning themselves with the pro-NATO, pro-war agenda, like crazy. I mean, we even have a caricature of this some politician, I'm sorry, he's also a colleague of mine, that he has a caricature, a meme with him with a Kalashnikov on his neck, because he supports war. He's so pro-war, and others like him present themselves as these progressive leaders advocating for gay rights, advocating for inclusivity, advocating for pluralism, and at the same time for war. This doesn't fly in Romania, I'm sorry. They are not, they are non-existent. Non-existent. No one cares. No one cares.
But I think I have a feeling even if the left was to chew gum and walk at the same time, even if they were to be advocating for peace as well as queer liberation, women's liberation, folks would still reject it, though, would they not, due to...
I don't think so. If they had the courage to say, look, we do not oppose vaccines per se, but we oppose the idea that they were bought with a contract that was kept secret. We oppose the idea of the lack of transparency. We oppose the idea that vaccines for countries like Cuba weren't even considered because they are considered automatically inferior, and our doctors didn't even pay attention to those. We attacked the idea that not the lockdown per se, but the idea that people weren't given support during lockdowns. We attacked the idea that businesses and all the people that were affected by the pandemics were treated as collateral damage. We attacked the idea that Romania should engage in such reckless military spending and not invest more in creating inside NATO a critical voice that would advocate for peace, okay? Because it's not necessarily to destroy the alliance. You can have a critical voice in the alliance because the alliance is not the sacred cow, okay? That you should bow to and be completely rational in your complete obedience, okay? Had they had that courage, I think things would have been completely different. They could have advocated, because just remember, in 2018, people didn't vote for the referendum to change the constitution. So the constitution would say that a marriage and a family is the union between spouses, and now it can be men, women, two women, men, women. They wanted to change the constitution in 2018, saying the family is the union between a man and a woman. And Romanians didn't vote for that. So there is a potential, you know, it's not that everybody's crazy, you know, and fundamentalist, but at the same time, the extreme right discourses were promoted, were accepted, and at the same time, the left put itself in a corner. And it was, you know, creating this profile of the perfect sitting duck. I'm sorry. And they supported the craziest ideas. They had the worst ideas. And in terms of, you know, of navigating this very complicated political life, and I told you, don't you remember that we had conversations about this? I mean, my goal as a leftist is not to go and lecture the people, is to go and find out what their grievances are and try to articulate that. Because I am not here some moral authority that is going to illuminate the public. Maybe I will try to do that, educate the public, you know, create social consciousness and all the rest, but also have to speak to them. Whereas, you know, I told them at some point, because we were trying to form, and my husband kept laughing and saying that this is the political party of academia. Because everybody in our leftist political party was a university professor, a researcher, an NGO activist, you know, everybody had a PhD, at least one. So to say it was elitist is an understatement, you know. So how can you reconcile that with the fact that you want to represent actually very poor and marginalized communities? What do you do when you have to do that? And of course, it all crumbled. Now you have people that united themselves with the right-wing party, with the liberal party. I mean, this party that demos, that small, insignificant party that we wanted to create, align itself with the liberal party, and then went together in elections and got nothing because nobody cares, you know. And they look at them, at least these people that have nothing to do with the real pressing issues of the Romanians, and this is it. The story of the left.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I mean,
I can't hear you.
How about now?
Oh, I can't hear you. Let me see. Speak now.
Yeah, you hear me now?
Oh, unfortunately, I can't. Now, can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Well, I think I think just in wrapping up, we are going to do a follow-up episode because it is very interesting what's happening in Romania. But I think it's also a very, very, very sad state of affairs when once again we have an Eastern European country where the left should be making huge comebacks, and this is what we get because the left, for whatever reason, decides to prop up their very enemies. In principle, they should just stay in opposition, but instead they prop up liberals or they prop up corrupt social democratic parties. Look at Germany with the Greens. Look at the European Greens saying to Dr. Jill Stein to drop out of the US presidential race when she's trying to buck the system and what they claim they're trying to do, which is to buck the 2 to 3 party system. And then, you know, lo and behold, when the left keeps itself off like that, do not be surprised when people will look for other answers. And again, we may not like their idea of a protest vote, but
this is what you get. This is what you get, you know, ideas with the water, the divine, fighting poverty, all this melting pot of very exotic ideas with realistic ideas.
unbelievable. Well, I think, well, before we close, anything else you want to share, you know, before we close this edition of 1+1?
Well, I want to share with an optimistic thought, which is very unlikely of
I
me.
love optimism, so go ahead.
Which is very unlikely. I think it's for the first time in a very, very long time when I end up optimistically, because I told you, Romanian politics looked like a dead corpse for a very long time. And finally, even though it is in the form of a very eccentric politician, to say the least, at least it's something. And at least it got people interested in discussing politics, in getting involved, in voting. And the new interest in politics came to be, important in our society, which I think is very good. It's a good moment. I haven't lived through such a moment in years now, in years. So yeah, nice.
Well,
It's not
well,
very scary.
and of course, one can only hope that the left just gets its shit together. I don't know what what more I can say about that. Well, we were joined on this edition of One Plus One with Maria Cernat, who is an academic based in Romania, teaches media criticism, media studies, and media ethics. And and yes, will and yes, and folks, do check out her channel. And yeah, Maria, plug yourself.
Okay, bye.